You're listening to Kate Palmer from sparkletart.com. Today I'm going to show you a technique called paint over collage. Basically, you glue down your collage onto your base paper and then you put a clear matte medium over the top. Now this is often either a clear gesso or an actual product called matte medium. Today I'm using Liquitex matte medium and I've already laid my coat of that over this particular collage. Now today I'm going to be using Prismacolor Pencils and Magicals from Lindy's Stamp Gang to colour the little birds. Now for those of you who haven't used Magicals before, they're little pots of basically powdered paint, so they're dry. You dip a wet water brush in there and then mix it to the side in another palette so that you don't ruin the powder. They're sparkly, they're gorgeous, and they're so easy to work with. But they can also be a little deceptive because the colour of the powder isn't necessarily the colour of the paint when you add some water. So just do a test piece first. I'm going to start by adding some pencil. I don't need to colour the whole thing because there's already colour here that I can use, but I'd just like to emphasise some of that texture and some of those feathers. There's not a lot of light and shade on this bird. It's sort of a bit one-toned. So what I'm going to do is use my pencils to emphasise some areas and add a little bit of light and a little bit of colour. So I'd like to make this bird look artistic rather than realistic. So I'm going to emphasise some areas and completely leave others alone.
And I just like adding a bit of paler grey just to sort of outline.
You'll notice that adding that little dash of grey really makes the texture and the areas that I've outlined stand out more. So previously the eye in particular and the tail feathers kind of receded back into the general bird. Adding that little touch of grey means they stand out much more. The matte medium gives a really wonderful texture to work on with pencils, especially for this kind of work, because it's not entirely smooth, so your results aren't entirely smooth either. Wonderful for animal fur and feathers because it's so textured. I love working over the top of matte medium when I'm colouring in animals. I'm now swapping to my black Prismacolor pencil and I'm going to darken up some of those areas. If anyone that's got a laser printer knows, the blacks aren't really a true black, it's just a dark grey. That is a great opportunity to add some real dark and depth into it, and that's what I'm doing now. You can see how much darker and more dramatic just adding that black pencil makes the little bird look. But if you've ever seen one of these in real life, you know that they have this beautiful sheen, which I'm going to try and mimic. I'm adding some of the Molotow or Molotow paint marker. This one's in metallic black, and I'm adding this to the black areas on the bird that would be sort of reflecting the light a little. And what this does is it's adding some sort of silver metallic shimmers that will look a little bit more realistic and make the bird look less flat. I don't want a weird little line of paint, so I'm smudging it with my finger to blend it in with the rest of the bird's colour. Just like the rest of the page, I need to add a few layers to get the little bird to look the way I want him to. And again, you really do need the matte medium to be able to do that.
And then I'll just go and put any pencil marks back in here that I might have lost. Now I'm also adding some white just to the little wings. A little bit on the tail. And you can see how that silver makes that pencil stand out. If I'd just done this over the black background, you wouldn't really see it. And what I'm doing here is I'm just doing little half circles to look like feathers. As I said, I'm not trying to do a realistic bird. I want it to look sort of whimsical and almost cartoonish, I suppose, in a way. So by very crudely drawing these feathers on top of the silver, just helps it look a little bit less realistic. I don't want it to look realistic, I want him to look like my bird. Give some heavy strokes down here. Help pick out those tail feathers. Little feet.
I'm now going to outline some of the major elements of the bird in black, just to make it look a little bit more cartoonish, a little bit less realistic. I'm not actually making any attempt to actually colour in the bird. I'm just using really light strokes. I'm trying to keep it really light and soft, so it kind of reminds your bird feather when you look at it.
I know he doesn't really have a black chest, but I'm taking a bit of license here. So it's got a little bit of white still.
I'm using the Cool Grey 90%, the black and the white Prismacolors at this point, just to add a few more feathery strokes to outline some of the wing and to give that wing a little bit more the look of texture. And now I'm going to start colouring the blue areas with the Magicals from Lindy Stamp Gang. So I've got Batchelor Button Blue, which will be my lightest colour, and Afternoon Delight Denim, which is my darkest colour. So that I've got good control over the Magicals, I'm using a damp brush, dipping it into the powder, and then adding this to basically one drop of water in the lid of the pot, and I'm then mixing the powder with the water to get my Magicals activated, and that's all this really needs. I'm going to start by adding the Batchelor Button Blue, and the way I'm doing this is I've picked a couple of areas to make darker. They're not necessarily where it would actually be darker in real life. I just felt that it suited the page a bit better. I've also said a couple of times I'm doing something because it looks like that in real life. I'm not trying to make it look realistic. I'm actually overemphasizing its colours and its features for a more artistic feel to the bird, because the rest of the page isn't realistic at all, and if I did the bird that way, it just wouldn't fit.
Again, I'm just going to wash out my brush, and then with clean water just move those edges around so it colours in the rest of the little bird, but without any extra colour, so it still stays a bit lighter. Now you can see how beautifully these Magicals are going over the top of that matte medium, and that's why I use it. Really makes the colours stick, and you can use so many more paints on top of your favourite scrapbooking papers or whatever else you might have used. Now I'm going back to the Afternoon Delight Denim. It's my darker blue. And just adding that over the top, just to give him a bit more variation in the colours. And there'll be some on his tail, because he has a little bit of blue on the tail too. Or I suppose it's more of a blue sheen really, because the tail is black, but he's got like a shimmer going on. Alright, so now you can see that there's quite a big difference between those two blues. So I'm just going to wash my brush, get it nice and clean, and with that clean tip you can just see how beautifully the Magicals blend. And all I'm doing is touching edge to edge, and those two colours are blending, nothing more to it. Just touching with a wet paintbrush. See how easy that was? And you end up with a beautiful gradient. Alright, so I'm really liking this little bird here. He's got so much personality, and the colours are just gorgeous. Really happy with those. I might just drag a bit of this colour off his tail, And because it's on matte medium, all you need to do to take the colour off, not completely, but at least a little, is go over with a wet brush. That's simple. Makes things so easy.
Now, to make the little bird stand out a bit more from the page, I'm adding some 4B graphite pencil to create shadows. Now, these aren't necessarily on the same side as the light and shade on the bird. It's just where I felt it would work best on the page. I thought the other side was a little bit too busy with sort of the leaves and the surrounds, so I've chosen to add this on the left side of the bird. Adding the graphite shadows is actually pretty simple. So first you lay down a layer of graphite wherever you would like your shadows to be. Then you use a blending stump. Sometimes you can also use something called a tortillon, a paper tortillon, and you use little circles and just kind of rub the graphite to move it around the paper. I like to start this process right up close to the bird. Not only do you need to do this to grab the graphite and get some on your blending stump, but that's where the darkest shadow would be. So I make a row of little circles and sort of blend that darkest area into a nice dark line. Then I continue blending outwards without adding any more graphite, and you get gradually lighter shadows.
And basically, once you've got that first bit done, it's just then all about blending out. So you can blend out as far as you like, depends on how big you want that shadow. You can keep blending until all the colour is off your blending stump if you like. It really is up to you.
To finish off the bird and make it look like it sort of fit the page a bit better, I've gone and added a little bit of Deco blue to its wings. Again, just using the same technique I did previously, so just sort of lightly brushing the pencil over the matte medium and letting the matte medium sort of give it texture. You can see it's made it look a little bit more grey, and it sort of fits together with that background a bit better.
Between the matte medium, which gives it a little bit of texture, the Magicals, which give it this beautiful colour, I actually like my bird more than the original.
And these little birds are really perky, so I think that the sparkle was really quite suitable.
Can you see that there? Ah, there it is. There's the sparkle from the Lindy Stamp Gang Magicals. Isn't that yummy? He just glows. Now, admittedly, there's not a lot on there because I used quite a bit of water, but still, it really adds something to the bird's colours. And when you move down and look at the pencil on the wing, you can, it almost, well, it's not supposed to look like a realistic bird, but I love the way that's turned out.
And this is how my finished little blue wren looks. I rather adore him, he's gorgeous. And this is my finished page. I love the way it turned out. This was something very different from me, but I've really enjoyed creating it. So I hope you've learnt something in watching my little bird clip, and perhaps this is something you might try for yourself. Bye. Thanks so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye.